everyone, and welcome to Change Chats, the podcast to navigating your change management career. I am Judith Bueving, and today we are here with Erica Adams. Hey Erica, how are you?
Hi Judith, I'm very well. Thank you for coming to London to see me today. I know we've worked with each other in lots of different countries, but it's so good to see you here on my home territory.
So for the listeners out there, I've known Erica, I would say, for probably over 7 years now. We worked together in different countries for the same firm, and she's been a huge example for me and a mentor. So I'm really excited to be featuring you on my real first episode, I would say. I will get into introducing you. Erica is a proud Xennial, and I will point out here Xennial because I have to admit I thought she was Gen X, but she is more towards the end of it, and I'm more towards the end of the 80s, and she's more towards the beginning. So I would say we're still both babies from the 80s.
I was saying to Judith that I guess technically I am still Gen X, but I was born in the 80s. I was conceived in the 70s and born in the 80s. So right. My claim to fame there with the with being a later Gen X.
Right. So Erica is a change and adoption veteran. She has over 20 years of experience in the field, a cat and horse lover, and lives with her husband and all her animals in England. She is always full of a million of ideas, a very creative soul, also a great mentor that inspired me and I know has inspired many other change practitioners. And she's one of the reasons that I started this podcast, to help other change practitioners find their stride and their passion, just like she has really done for me. She has a background in electronic engineering, really not something that you would expect, I think. And she has worked both in the US and UK corporate environments at a Big Four, where she helped clients across different industries power their Salesforce journey, and currently leads the global human capital Salesforce expansion for the company. She is also passionate about upskilling programs that she has led in the US and now also in the UK, where she gives back to the community by helping members of the public pivot to careers in technology. So I think this is a mouthful and I still don't think it does you justice as a person. And I think like one of the first questions that I have is, how did you end up in change management? But before I even go there, you did electronic engineering as a degree. Like why did you choose that?
I know people are always surprised when they see what I do for a living, that my background is so technical. So why electronic engineering? Well, there's a few things that pushed me in that direction, and it all happened when I was in high school. So I was at a girls' high school here in England. And one of the things is that I've been introduced to technology, early on. My dad, as technology was available, as the first computers were available for gaming, and then for doing your office work, my dad was always on the forefront of that technology. We always had technology in our home. And so I was interested in it, and my dad used to talk to me about, he was an electrical engineer, but he used to talk to me about how computers were the future. And that if I wanted to have a great career, that would be something that would be a good direction for me to go in. And then at my girls' high school, we actually had a group that now I would assume was like one of the early women in technology groups, who came and ran an event at our girls' high school to encourage girls to get into technology. And I did. I absolutely love technology. I was taking computer studies and all the subjects that would probably set me up for a good career like that. But the real thing that pushed me specifically into electronics was I was at a girls' high school and there was a boys' high school. And from the ages of 16 to 18, they would let the girls go and take subjects at the boys' high school. Some of the girls in my year group were, I think, picking some of the subjects because they wanted to go to the boys' school. Yeah. And I was not interested in doing that. But there was one subject that I really wanted to do that was only offered at the boys' school, and that was electronics. But I was not allowed to go to the boys' school because the teachers had had decided that because I was a bit of a troublemaker, and I think they just didn't trust that I would get on the bus and go into town where the boys' school was and be on my best behaviour. Because I was not allowed to take electronics, I decided, being so stubborn like I always have been, that I was not only going to take electronics, I was going to find the best university to take electronics at, which at the time I worked out was York University. Right. And I was not just going to do a bachelor's degree in electronics like some of the boys would be doing. I was going to do a straight master's degree in electronic engineering. And I felt like I was really showing them by going off and doing this degree in electronic engineering. Now, did any of those teachers actually notice? Did any of them actually follow my progress through university? I highly doubt it. But
right, that's what I'm wondering.
There's this, self-importance that you feel at that age where you think the world completely revolves around you. And I was interested in computers. I, was more interested in the technical side of things, but I specifically wanted to do the hardest degree I could find, and one that I was being held back from because I wasn't allowed to go to the boys' school. So electronic engineering, that's it. I went and did my master's degree in electronic engineering.
Okay, I was going to ask the last question, and did you also like it?
It was great. It was really good. I absolutely loved it. I had the most amazing time at university, both from the academic side, but also from the social side and the sporting side. And that's where I started some of my hobbies that have transformed my life, one of which is skydiving. And I started skydiving while I was at university, and that's how I actually ended up in the US. I started skydiving at university. I then learnt to skydive in Southern California and spent every summer jumping out of planes in Southern California. And when it was time to graduate, I actually went on vacation to Southern California and stayed. And that's what started my life in the US.
Was your first job then also in electronic engineering, or did you start in change management right out of college?
I started looking for jobs once my work authorization came through in the US. And I found I'd been talking to friends online who I'd been at university with, and I found out that some of them had gone into consulting companies. A lot of them had become, junior software developers using the programming pieces of our studies. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, that's great. I'm going to, look for a consulting company to get into. I shopped around, I looked for different companies, and I found a consulting company that did a lot of custom software development. So I applied for an apprentice consulting position there, and I got the job. And so, that was great. But I ended up doing a lot of office work. I was really, even though they'd hired me as an apprentice, it was hard to get started on my first project. So I was doing a lot of office work, a lot of administration for them. But I was kind of waiting for this first project to come along. So then I did get my first opportunity to be on a custom software development program, and that went well. I was doing a lot of documentation and creating presentations to present back to the client. Absolutely loved it. I was like, yes, I'm getting there. I'm working towards this amazing career in technology that I wanted to have. And then our company won a big award contract with a huge school district to implement an ERP solution. And so, that's not custom software development, right? It was ERP, but it was still very exciting to me. So I, applied to kind of get involved in that project. So they let me into that project, and I helped with the blueprinting and doing a lot of the documentation, and I loved it. Yeah, it was so good. I was learning how this technology worked. And then after the blueprinting phase, they moved me over to help with the training team, and I helped create training documentation about how this software was actually going to work and helping explain it to the users. And once I'd finished that with the training materials development, I got to assist in the actual training delivery, which was really fun. We had our lead trainer leading all of the sessions, and they were, really long, day-long sessions for the staff who were moving over to use this new ERP solution. And I would be the assistant in the classroom, so running around kind of helping people who were getting behind, helping with technical issues, and really loved that, and did it for a couple of weeks. And the thing that really I remember this day as a massive change, or a moment in my career that changed the course of my career forever, was that our trainer was sick, and he had a message got through that he wasn't going to be able to teach, and we needed to cancel that session. So we were going to contact all of the attendees and tell them not to come.
Oh no.
But then I said to my boss, the change management lead, can I just teach the class? And he was like, can you just teach the class? And I'm like, yeah, I can teach the class. I've been, assisting for the last couple of weeks. I can absolutely teach this class. So I stood up and I taught the class, and it was a full day session, and I think it went really well.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon, the client actually came in to observe, and client came in, and then he called us into his office at the end of the day, and I went along, and he said, that was amazing. We want you to be the trainer from now on. So I became the lead trainer for the rest of that project. They actually rolled off the other training lead, and I took over.
Like, what happened to the sick one?
I became the actual training lead for the next cycle. So I helped, I helped the change lead, led the training needs assessment and design of the training materials. So then I had my own team who were creating all of the training materials for me. And I was like, this is amazing. My career is really progressing. And that was such, an important kind of step for me. And then after that, I thought that I wanted to get into the functional configuration. So on that same project, I went away to training to learn how to configure one of the modules of the ERP.
And why? Because
it was kind of my I was meant to be on the more technical side.
Right. Okay.
And I've been helping with all this kind of training, change management work, but my boss had agreed that I could go and learn how to have, the technical implementation steps and get a chance to do the technical piece, which is what, I have this degree in electronic engineering. I know how to code. I feel like I should be doing the techie side. And so I went off and took that training, and then I worked under a lovely lady who helped, mentor me and show me the road. That was really wonderful, and I enjoyed it. But I missed doing the training. I missed working with the people.
Right.
I missed explaining to them how the technology worked. Right. So I made a decision at that point and have never looked back. Right. I left the technical side of it behind.
Right.
And so then went on to have this whole change management career, and didn't look back and have never looked back. So that's how getting into electronics to kind of getting out of it, I guess, and getting away from some of the more technical elements. And, I'm still very technical, as you know.
This lady has like 10 Salesforce degrees, or I don't know, like all your certifications.
Yeah, I like to get really in the details. That's what I'm kind of known for. So right now, over the last 10 years, I've been doing, organizational change management and adoption for Salesforce implementations. And I have 10 Salesforce certifications. I really like to understand how the technology works. And it's 10 right now, but ask me next year, it will be more, because there's loads of the functionality that I'm still learning, and lots of the modules that I'm still trying to get certified in.
So I guess then your career is focused on change management, but there is still that software piece. Like that's definitely always following you around. What keeps you going in it and like being so passionate about it when you speak?
Yeah, I love technology, and I think that's it. I love technology. I understand how it works. I understand what a game changer it is, and yet I've found this really great spot at the intersection of the people and workforce and the actual technology. And I'm always surprised at how few people we come across who actually are in this space, like right at that intersection, like change management people who are like super techie like I am, or techie people who have decided to have a career in change management. We have a lot of people who are interested in technology, and generally, at least in my world, in consulting organizations, they seem to go and be on the, the functional or the technical implementation side. And then we have a load of, people who are in human capital and change management practitioners, but often shy away from learning a technology and like becoming the expert. And to me, it's completely a natural thing. Like, why would, we're like the most trusted advisor for our clients to help them get the value out of this massive investment that they've made in technology. And we're the one who are interacting with their most vulnerable, employees, or in some cases, sometimes even their customers,
right?
Who are most impacted by this change. Like, why would they not want us to be the most skilled in the technology? So I've found this like happy place, and I have never been looking for more work. I've got so much work. We have this concept in consulting of like being on the bench, which is when you're between projects. I have never been on the bench. Like I always have had, overlapping projects, and there's always been a need. And now that I'm at the point, where I'm not necessarily doing the delivery, but I'm scoping out the work and designing the programs, and then my teams are coming in and delivering. And I've just been busy busy. I've been really busy, and there's always been a need for this work. So that's what's kept me in it, is that there has been such a massive need for this work, and not a lot of people who have got really technical with it like I have.
Yeah, no, and I think that's also kind of how you and I connected, because when I got onto a project for you, you were like, okay, well, can you do the training for it? And I was like, I'm not really sure about that. Like, I don't really know this specific software, but sure, I will learn. That's something to me that's like a given. Like, if that's what you're doing, that's what you're selling. Like, come on.
Be the expert. And that's what I've always said to all of my teams. And I think having like the technical certifications and a technical background is helped, like when I'm explaining to my technical colleagues, or maybe the people who own like the environments, like to give me access, because sometimes they're reluctant to let us, access a system. And when I'm like, oh, well, I've got my, administrator certification anyway, they're more comfortable. Yeah. But I always encourage my teams, my change management teams, and, you were one of them at one point, to get in and learn the technology inside out.
Yes.
It
helps with credibility.
It does help with the credibility. And what it also helps, I've had these projects that I've stepped into where our training teams have had to have someone from the functional or technical side actually come in and deliver the training.
Yes.
And they just like organize the training, and I'm like, no, there's already sometimes a doubt on some of the value that we bring. And I have found, unfortunately, that change management practitioners are sometimes, when budgets are cut, are some of the first teams to get rolled off a program. Yeah. And so why would we not want to add additional value? I've been the person who's found bugs in the system, and earlier on than even the testing team, because I'm always the first one. I'm like, let me in there, let me learn it, let me work out how this technology is configured, and truly become the expert. And that's what I do with all of my teams. I'm like, become the expert in this technology, and you will be so valuable that you will always have a role here. So yeah, it's the way that I play with all of this.
And would you then also say that that's how you have progressed in your career?
Yeah, I think because that's been my brand, right? I'm definitely so firmly at the intersection. I could have had a career that was just in technology, which is the way I thought it was going. But I could have also had a career that was just in the people and the workforce side. And I found this really happy place in the middle. But what I would say about what's helped me progress the most in my career was actually that first big project where I went from being like the documentation specialist to like the training assistant to the trainer to the training lead to the change lead, having a little, go at doing some functional configuration. That was like a 3.5 year project. Wow. Very early on at the start of my career. Yeah. And I built the trust of not only my, project managers or my bosses, but also the client. And the client, each one of those changes of me coming into the next role they were quite big step ups in the time frame. Those were all them putting their trust in our company, but also them putting their trust in me. Yeah. And so when I'm coaching people who, my coachees or junior team members, and they're put off by, a project they might be starting on that's like an 8-month or 1 year project, or even multiple years, it's or maybe, there's this fear from the younger people. I guess it's a bigger proportion of their careers, so they're more worried about being on these long-term engagements, and they'll ask my advice, and don't you think it's time that I roll off? And I'm like, well, if you're in the same role for the whole time and you're not seeing growth, then yeah, absolutely. But see this as an opportunity that you're with a client, you with a certain set of leaders who you can gain their trust, you can gain the trust of the client, and as long as your role can keep evolving, it can actually be such a great thing for your career, like it was for mine. There was no way that over a course of 3.5 years I would have gone from being a documentation specialist to the actual change management lead of this absolutely massive implementation if I'd been hopping around every 6 months to different projects. Right. I just don't think that I would have built up that level of credibility, and I wouldn't have been confident in myself. But because I knew the processes and the technology and the client so well, I had the confidence to step up into those new roles. So yes, I've had a lot of people give me, opportunities along the way. One of my first bosses, Elaine, and then both of our boss, Kevin, who gave me those first opportunities. I've had some absolutely amazing leaders who've put their trust in me, but I've also had such great clients who I've been on big, long projects for, and they've trusted me and have allowed me to evolve and grow my career.
Right. Yeah. And I guess they keep coming back for more too.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the thing. And we see that so much in our business.
Yeah.
Where we've built that trust with our clients and they remember us and they come back, even if it's not an extension of your current engagement, or even if they've moved on to it, working at another company. Those relationships that we build, they really do trust us, and they really do come back to us for advice, and when possible, pull us back in for doing more work for them.
Yeah, and the long projects, I want to do another plug for long projects, because one of my first projects in the US, it was a state project, and it was also a software implementation. And I think the contract for me then was for at least a year. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so long. All my other peers are doing like 3-4 months here and then there. And I was in this team, change readiness team, where sometimes I was like, oh, like I have to do this and I have to do that. And like, it's really grinding work and a lot of documentation, says the analyst, right? I mean, that's like the experience you have to build up when you start in your career. But I was looking for something else as well. Like I wanted something more. And so there was a training team, and I said, can I just, do this on the side? And they were like, sure. So I remember then like, just stepping into a new complete world. It was, I think Obamacare was being implemented then. So I learned a lot about the policy as well and the system. But again, like I think during that project, like the fact that I had change readiness and stakeholder engagement experience, and also a lot of classroom training experience, really helped me accelerate the projects that were coming after. Yeah. So yeah, I would definitely say there is value in doing long projects.
Yeah, projects, big long projects for the win. But do make sure that you're always growing and that you're always asking for, for the next challenge, for the next role, for the next evolution of your role.
Is that also something that you would give as advice for change practitioners that are just starting out in their career? Or is there some other type of advice that you have?
That's obviously one that I do, right? I pass that on to my people who I'm coaching, whether that's formal coaching through the firm or informal. That long projects are great and give them a go. Mm-hmm. But the thing I would definitely say for people who are starting out in this career is finding something that you can really get stuck into and become the expert of. Mm-hmm. I do feel like we see a lot of change management generalists. Okay. And I do think that learning the craft of change management is really important. Understanding how we would build a change management program, understanding all of the different activities and work products that need to happen, from leadership alignment to stakeholder analysis, stakeholder engagement plans, communication planning, change impact assessments, a whole change strategy, all the readiness activities, training needs assessment, training delivery, development, delivery, the adoption work, absolutely all of that, understanding all of the elements. But then what are you going to be known for? And that could be a particular industry that you're serving in, or it could be a particular technology. And in some cases, there's so much work that people can choose an industry and a technology and become that expert as well. For me, I have always been cross-industry, but I've always chosen a technology. So for the first 10 years of my career, that was a certain ERP technology. Mm-hmm. And for the next 10 years, or now about 12 years of my career, I've been focused in the CRM space, mostly with Salesforce CRM. And I've become known as the expert in change management and adoption for Salesforce CRM. So I've not only helped my clients, but then when we were implementing it ourselves, first of all in our US firm, because I was known as the Salesforce change management expert, I was then brought on to implement it internally for our firm in the US. And then when we were implementing it globally, I then took on the global change management role for that same technology. So become known for something.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying really find a niche, and whatever that is, it can be different facets. And I am gonna say the project that she was referencing proudly is something of how I met Erica. We worked on that project together, and we implemented it across the world, which was a really amazing experience. And thinking about that across the world, I mean, you spent most of your career in the US, and you only moved back to the UK, I think 18 months ago. And so would you also say that finding this niche enabled you to continue your same career. Basically,
it did.
it transplanted from the US. Whoop.
Yeah, I'm doing the same work, right? So because I was known as, the go-to person for Salesforce within our firm, change management and adoption for Salesforce, because I've done it, for my clients and internally. I built this brand, this reputation, and I'd also implemented that same technology for our UK firm, and so I've met loads of the team members, and so already had a reputation with a lot of people. So when the opportunity in my life came up to come back home to the UK to be closer to family and have a whole new life here, the fact that I was already well known throughout our firm, and not just at our firm, externally as well, helped me to kind of justify and move in my career to the UK firm. And leader of our Salesforce practice at the time said how excited he was that I was moving. He said, "I have a place on my leadership team for you."
That's awesome.
So we're waiting for you, which was, that really helped me and helped us be able to kind of, from a business side, justify the move. So find something you're passionate about,
right.
And become the expert in it, do everything you can to learn everything about it and have that be your brand.
So that's, I think, the advice that we would give change practitioners that are just starting out in their career. Now, when I was doing some research for this podcast, there were quite some respondents that are Xennials or later. And they were specifically also asking for what's next for me? They would love to know how they can further evolve in their career, which is I'm just thinking about it, and all the career podcasts I've been listening to is not something that they often talk about in podcasts. So I'm wondering if you have any insights, and what would you recommend to men and women of your age? Right? In this career.
And I think the thing is, at this point in life and at this point in our careers, I think a lot of people who were in change roles earlier in their career have sometimes moved on to other things, which I get, in a consulting organization, there's sometimes some pressures to do that, is to not be as specialized, but maybe, broaden a little bit. And I have not done that, and I'm not planning on doing that. But I think the thing is, there's also this feeling that because technology advancements are moving so fast, that how are we going to keep up? And I think that you get to a certain age and you've got so many other things happening in life, so many responsibilities, at home with your family, or, with taking care of your parents, because they might be at that age, and so many things in your community. And what I have done is not to forget that I need to be constantly learning. And I think that there's this, when you're in quite a high pressure job, there's people look for a way to kind of escape, and I think people spend a lot of time on their phone. Right. I joke with my husband about how he watches a lot of cat videos on the internet, which are fun, or things on Instagram that are little cute things of cats, and we both do it and we both send them to each other. But I often think when he's telling me that he's annoyed because he didn't get to do something, I'm like, well, don't watch as many cat videos on the internet. So
2 hours.
We don't watch television in our house, and I rarely watch Netflix.
Right.
And what I've tried to do on purpose is, this is going to sound so nerdy, and I am a nerd, but
I can confirm.
I've tried to use the time that I would otherwise spend on social media or watching television or watching Netflix, that I think a lot of other people do, and I've tried to funnel that into continuing to learn. And so for me, that has been through learning and getting more certifications in the area that I work in. So for Salesforce, to stay on top of the technology and to stay really relevant and really needed in this space. This space is evolving so quick, and you can't have a podcast without mentioning AI.
Right.
But AI is an absolute game changer in technology, and particularly in the space that I work in CRM. And we have, through our firm, we have an AI institute that puts out they put out so many articles, and I feel like it's a full-time job just keeping up with like the latest thinking and everything.
You need AI to summarize.
Yeah, you do, and I do use it every day for things like that.
Yeah.
But staying on top of like the latest and staying relevant and being, people get so much information from podcasts and from all sorts of different news forms now that you need to stay on top of things because things are changing by the day, by the week. And when we're out talking to our clients and our colleagues, we do need to, stay relevant with the technology. You can't be talking about things that were like a year ago. You can't be talking about things that were like just 6 months ago. You need to stay on top of it. And how I found time in my life to stay on top of those things is by not watching as many cat videos on the internet and not watching television. So I know that's probably really, really sad to say to people of my age who are probably trying to find more work-life balance, but I get a lot more out of staying on top with like the latest news in technology. I stay away from other news so that I can focus on like staying on top of everything that's happening, all the exciting trends that are happening in technology right now.
Right. And I still remember too that when we were on the same project implementing Salesforce, that you would study during the weekend for your certifications.
Oh gosh,
But I think back then, I feel like it was 3 certifications. So the fact that you now have 10.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's been really helpful,
I know.
I don't know, is it something I sometimes think to myself, am I like overdoing it with the certifications for a human capital practitioner? Like I haven't met another human capital practitioner in consulting who has as many certifications as me, and I'm thinking, am I, making up for something? I don't know.
I think it's inspirational.
I don't. Yeah, I think that sometimes we have this, like, we talk about imposter syndrome in our industry quite a lot when we're, sold as an expert in a certain area and don't necessarily feel like we are. One of the things I've done to protect myself from the horrible feeling of imposter syndrome is to like become the expert. And I think that's one of the reasons that I love finding a technology or a thing and becoming the expert in it, because I hate imposter syndrome.
You're protecting yourself.
I am. I'm protecting like my embarrassment of not knowing the answer to something. I'm protecting like, a client asking me a question and me not having a good, intelligent answer.
That's how I felt too when I would have to train on technology projects. I would hate it if I didn't know.
And that's what's kept me in that same kind of wanting to be, instead of switching technologies or switching, to something completely different, I have, each one is just kind of like an evolution. I've like learned more and taken what I've learned from that last project and taken that to my next client. So I think that by me getting all of these certifications and trying to stay on top of it, I'm protecting myself from that like embarrassment that I know I will suffer if, all that fear, like that anxiety that I'll have if I'm, having to go in and talk to a client about something that I'm not the actual expert on. So I've protected myself by becoming this absolute super nerd, and because it does take a lot out of me focusing on learning, I do end up doing some studying at the weekend, but make time for it at other times as well, and on the go, instead of looking at social media, training modules or reading articles about the latest in technology. That's the way I do it.
Now, I definitely know then that certifications is not something that you became stuck on or like knowing the technology in your career, but has there ever been a time in your career where you felt stuck and you were like, oh, I don't know if I want to continue in this field, maybe I should do something else, or you just couldn't see the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I had a really bad bout of this in 2021, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. So, we had 2020, we had COVID. That was, obviously a fight to get through for everyone, and a lot of things changing. But it got to midway through 2021, and we were still all working from home and not seeing each other. And I hadn't been on a business trip in, felt like years at that point, but a year and a half. Yeah. And I went from, as you know, traveling around the world pre-COVID. Right. In fact, when COVID hit, I was on a 3-week international business trip. Yeah. I went from traveling around the world every week to not traveling at all. And this is after a career of international and US travel nearly every week of my career. Right. So for a year and a half, I'd been sitting at home working every day, and I was feeling like I wasn't connecting to people and to my clients, right? I went from being on client side all the time and being with people to being at home for a year and a half and still doing the hard work, and felt like you were working harder because we're going from call to call and expected to kind of take on so much more. Right. I was feeling disconnected from it. And I felt like I wanted to try something else. So I thought, well, I could go back to tech. And, a lot of people who I knew, you see this on online as people are moving and changing careers. A lot of people in my, age group were going and having these careers at tech startup companies. And so I started... I started interviewing with a tech startup company that I was really excited about, and I was moving through the interview stages, but finally kind of stepped away from that when I made a decision to stay in consulting and to stay at our firm. And one of the things that really helped me was I realized that the joy I used to get from consulting wasn't there anymore. And so I wrote down all of the things that had brought me joy earlier in my career. And one of the things that was like top of the list was facilitation. Yeah. And by that, I don't mean, developing learning on a certain, ERP or CRM solution for my clients. I mean like facilitating learning for my colleagues or for people who are bringing up through the firm. Yeah. One of the highlights of my career was my time spent on the core team of our senior consultant milestone program and at our training facility. Yeah. And I had for many years been part of that core team to help design the program and develop the training modules. And I was there for every delivery of this amazing 3-day training that we brought all of our senior consultants through. And I just loved that. That was honestly the best, and it still is the best time of my career. As one of the facilitators and, part of the core program team who actually built the training, met some of my absolute favorite people in the world who were part of that core team as well. So I decided I needed to, when the reopened post-COVID, I needed to go back and do facilitation. So when that announcement came, so in the summer of 2021, that we were reopening that facility, we were going to take all of the people who we'd hired during the COVID years, who had never even been into one of our firm's offices and had never had everything had been virtual. They'd never been to a client site. Everything had been virtual. So we designed this amazing program that would take all 14,000 new employees through. And they were like, we need facilitators. And so I signed up to be a facilitator. And so I went to the facility, and like every good facilitator does, I read my facilitation guide and did my prep the night before in my room. And during 2020, our US purpose office had launched. Mm-hmm. And one of the modules was about the firm's purpose, your team's purpose, and your personal purpose. And the activity that I was going to be facilitating with participants was writing their own personal purpose statement. So I went through the activity in my room that night.
You were like, shoot, I don't have one.
Yeah, I didn't have one. But I used the guide that I was going to be facilitating them through the next day, and I wrote it. Right. And after I wrote that was another one of those moments where everything changed. So my personal purpose statement is to use my skills, passion, and position to give access and open opportunities for people who were not born with my privilege. And after I wrote that, I was like, now I have to make sure I'm doing that. Right. And I had been helping with a really amazing program called the Pathfinder program. And I'd been a coach and a mentor for that program and help, guide the program team as they were making changes. But I wanted to do more. I loved that work. And I was doing that, what we call, side of desk as a firm initiative on top of my client work. But I wanted to do more of it. So I started telling people my personal purpose statement, and I sent it around, and the lady who was actually running that global program at the time was going out on leave. And she said, look, I'm going out on leave. I've read your personal purpose statement. If you'd like to take over this role, it is available. You'll have to do it on top of your client work. So I took on the lead role for our global Pathfinder program, which we later evolved into the WAVE Workforce Development Program in 2022, which is the program that I run now, along with my human capital Salesforce business within the firm. WAVE was a commitment that we made in 2022 with Salesforce to train 10,000 members of the public for jobs in the Salesforce ecosystem. So technical Salesforce skills and Deloitte business skills to help people pivot to a career in technology. And we've helped so many people. We're about halfway through that commitment now. And yeah, it's just such a great program. I've had so much it has helped me to fulfill my personal purpose. But the thing that I love the most about it is it's helped so many of our colleagues have something to give back, a way to give back. They love it. People come alive. And I feel like young people entering the workforce need to know that the company they're working for does make big commitments in this space into, for helping others through education.
And they're more vocal about it as well. I would say than like my generation. It's like we're idealistic as millennials, but we kind of let it slip, whereas with Gen Z it's like no.
If your firm hasn't got that, I'm not interested in working for you. So it gives a lot of the younger people some really good balance in their career, right? But they're working for these big clients that we have, and sometimes their beliefs don't align to those of the client. But having a program like this where they can really give back and skills-based volunteering basically, but really seeing the impact of the work they're putting in, where they're personally training and mentoring people who are trying to pivot into this space. It's been such a great program to lead, and it's been something that has helped me to continue to not feel stuck.
Yeah, so nice. And also, like, I would say kudos to you, because I know that you were very passionate about it when I met you in the US, and now you've brought it here as well, or continued it here.
Right. I now have this program that I lead, thousands of people who are trained by my program, who I see, starting in amazing careers where they're making, a lot more money to support their family than they could have in the career they were previously in. And we've even hired a lot of my absolute favorite people at the firm through this program as well. But also seeing our own team members who are getting to give back through this program, and how much they love this, right? How much they love volunteering and how much they get out of it. It really helps having that balance at work, of having something that's really truly aligned to your purpose, and then something that you're just really good at and can help keep the business running. So important to have both of those pieces. And it's a global program. I'm running it out of the UK firm right now, but we have programming that's currently live in the US, Canada, Brazil, and the UK. But we previously had programming that we will do more of in Japan, in Ireland, in 6 countries in Spanish-speaking Latin America, and we're expanding the program. So it's truly a global program.
Nice. All right, switching a little bit, when we're thinking about how other people see change management, tell me some of the biggest misconceptions that you've come across.
Oh boy. Sometimes the people who focus on like the tech side of technology, so like the functional or technical implementation space, don't understand the true value that we bring. One of the misconceptions is that we only do comms and training. They don't understand full cycle change management and everything that we can bring to the table to help de-risk this massive investment that the client has made, and to help the client get the value that they expected and get their users to truly adopt. I think some of that kind of leads to the next misconception. I think because some of our tech colleagues think it's just training and communications, they don't always see the need to invite us into the party.
Right.
They try and do some of that work.
You got to invite yourself a lot of the times.
They do some of that work themselves. And when that happens, or when our clients do this work themselves, when they're implementing technology and they're not fully focused in on the full scope of all the things they need to do from a change perspective, they will miss out really vital things like leadership alignment, or setting the vision for the program, or determining the value that they want to get out of the program, and coming up with the ways that they're going to track that, or truly analyzing all of their stakeholders and designing the right stakeholder engagement plan.
Right.
So many elements get missed when they misunderstand the work that's done, or when our non-change management people try to do this on their own. Definitely misconceptions there. But within our own change business, one of the misconceptions is that, and I found this more so with the training roles than other change management roles, but that really junior people, I think people think it's easy. And people only do it when they're juniors. For training, when I'm trying to build out full scope change management team and I'm looking at the pieces for the training and I'm trying to find, someone who's going to be the training manager and then, people who are going to, lead the training needs assessment or actually design the training or maybe do the training delivery. A lot of our more experienced practitioners aren't wanting to do that training delivery and there's this kind of feeling that that's something they did when they were more junior in their career and they've moved on from it. Which, again, common misconception. In fact, in many cases, we need people who are more senior in their careers. We even do training for executives. I think we've done white glove treatment training for very senior executives for our clients and for our own firm. And we do not throw the most junior person in on that. There's a lot of experience that can be gained from doing many, many years of full cycle implementations that were successful, and even more experience that can be gained when they weren't successful. So having people who are more seasoned in their career and have been doing this the whole time, or for many, many years, many, many cycles is really important. So it is not just a career that you kind of pass through at a junior point in your career and move on from. It is something that you can focus on for your whole career.
And I think to add to that too is you grow in your career and you're like, oh, only junior people do this. But then like, for example, with me starting my podcast, I am like, oh, all those skills that I picked up 7 years ago, like I still have them and they come back. I need to refresh them and I still need to do like the actual work. But I think it also keeps me attractive as a resource in the market or on projects because there are so many skills that I keep building.
Yeah, it's something that so many things you can learn and so many things that are yet to be learned. But having this be what you've focused on for so long in your careers, it's really important. And there's one of the things our clients always want us to do in consulting is share experiences about how others have done it, right? And you can't have those experiences if if this is your first project or you've only done one as a client. But having that real rich catalog of experiences that you can call upon has been so important for me. I've been in this space doing change management work for, I was about to say, how old am I? For 23, for my whole career, for 23 years, I've been doing this. And so that first story that I told you was right back at the start, right? That was at the start of my career. And I still talk about how we, overcame obstacles, how we overcome pushback, how we, manage lack of user adoption. I still tell those stories when I'm talking to clients today. This is a quarter of a century later, and I'm still telling those stories. And yes, they've evolved, and the technology that we use for learning and the technology that we're implementing has changed. But so many of the things in change management don't. So many of those obstacles that you can keep telling these stories. So it is something that you can do for life and for your whole career, and it is not going away. Especially with everything that's happening with technology. I think more than any disruption with technology that's ever happened, what's happening with AI brings our skills to the forefront more than ever before. And why is that? Because the people and the workforce are impacted by AI or are going to be impacted by AI more than any other technology disruption. So this is why I'm so busy right now. And it's just such an exciting place to be. It's not only an exciting place for people who are getting started, but it's something that I would hope that people can have a long career in. And it's the career, it's the area that I'm planning to do until I retire.
Oh, okay.
So I am not.
Okay, you're putting it out there now, I'll hold you accountable.
I'm a lifetime change practitioner, and I'm definitely not planning on going anywhere with that.
Nice. And I'm just thinking kind of full circle moment, because you started in your career training and facilitating and you really liked that. And then you got stuck and you thought about your purpose statement. And then again, it's the facilitating that you enjoy so much.
Yeah, I love facilitating, but I also love helping set up programs where other people are going to be facilitating.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's what's really crazy about this whole thing is I talked about my dad at the start. I didn't talk about my mum, but my dad was for his whole career an electrical engineer, but he got into sales. Yeah. So he was an electrical engineer by his studies and by his apprenticeships and everything like that. But then he got into sales. And my mother was a teacher for her whole career.
Yeah.
And I have so many times told people the story. I am this perfect combination of my parents. When I first got into tech training, I realized that I had my dad's technical side and I had my mum's the teaching and the wanting to help people understand. And yeah, I've stayed at that happy space, and I'm very lucky that in moving back here to England, one of the great benefits is my parents are still both alive, and still live in my childhood home, and so I get to spend lots of time with them. Yeah, it's such a blessing to still have them.
One last question, then we're gonna conclude this episode. But if you're thinking about one change smart move, and it can be regardless of experience, country, background, what is it that you would recommend for a change practitioner?
One of the big things that's been a game changer for me over the last few years has been data-driven change management. Okay, so what do we mean by that? It is really designing your change management programs based on data. And a lot of that is, yes, I do a lot of work in the adoption space. The data is really key there, and I'll get to that. Mm-hmm. But when you're actually thinking about, let's give an example of a tech transformation where you're moving from a legacy system or set, it's usually now multiple systems, and you're replacing them with multiple other systems, is looking at the usage, the adoption data of system A, right, of the legacy system. And let's say you look at usage patterns with the people who've been actually logging in and using the different features, and you can determine the adoption. And I would look at, let's say, the 25% of that user base who were using the system or had the highest adoption rates. So look at the system and look at the set of users that have the highest adoption rate in the legacy system, and design your change management program to focus most of your attention on those 25%. And this aligns nicely with our global change narrative that we've just released recently around our committed 25%, but it is a little different. What I mean by this is, let's say you focus 75% of the effort of your change program on those 25%. So yes, you can bring people in who were high adopters, right? They, and we would naturally do that because they were people who maybe the specialists who are using the technology every day, and bringing them in, to focus groups, help them design the new solution, help you understand what was missing, and develop the new processes. Bring them in. But it is very likely that those are the people who are going to be obviously the most impacted because they were using it day to day.
Yeah.
And therefore need to be the people who are kind of closest to that change. Now, that sounds really obvious, but we usually haven't done that. For most of the projects I've worked at, we didn't actually look at the usage data of the legacy system. We didn't.
Only the new system and the adoption rates.
And
right.
who you heard would be the biggest users. Not that one person who actually, on paper probably shouldn't have been using it so much, but they actually really relied on it. And we didn't think on getting, if we don't look at the data, we wouldn't know they were actually using it. Maybe they're not that vocal, but it was something they really relied on, or something that they naturally were just really good at using. We need to harness that. We need to bring that in. We need to work out why they were using it so much. We need to, maybe there's someone who's going to really help us as being a champion for the new system if we bring them along.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, data's really, really important from an adoption standpoint. So particularly with CRM, where there's some pieces of it that you could say are a little optional about when and to the extent that people use it. Sales teams, as an example, right? When are they during the sales cycle going to actually log that opportunity or put that lead in, or are they going to fully fill out the information about the relationship that they've been developing with that particular customer? Or from a service standpoint, they might put the bare minimum in about that ticket that they were processing, but trying to get them, encourage them to actually really utilize the system. So adoption data, using data for adoption is really key. A lot of our more modern technologies. I would say most of our technologies that we're implementing now have great, adoption dashboards, either ones that are delivered as part of the package or can be, configured. So thinking about what is adoption? What does adoption look like early on in the project? Not like the week before you're going live or post go live. Like think about what adoption is. This often maps back to the value that you're trying to get out of this solution, and determine what those KPIs are going to be. Right? What is adoption? What are the KPIs? Making sure that you've got the dashboard set up so that you can actually track that. And then planning out ahead before go live, like what are you going to do if you're not getting the adoption levels that you expect, right? So that you're not having to kind of plan that all out once you realize people aren't actually using this technology. Let's plan it out ahead of time, all agree who's sending those escalation emails if their teams are not using the technology. But don't just think about the negative adoption, who is not using. Think about the rewarding people who are. One of the things that I'm working on right now is a really great system that a really great asset or tool that we use for some of our implementations, and we're developing something where it will integrate with adoption dashboards to send customized campaign communications and nudges to people based on the adoption data. So as an example, it will see people who haven't logged in yet, and it will send them automated communications saying, hey, we noticed you haven't logged in. It's been 3 days. Here's a video. Here's the instructions on how you can log in. If you need someone to contact you to help you log in, reply to this message or click this button. Great. Maybe it's something like, we noticed that you've been using our reports and creating all your own reports. Here's an invitation to a reporting masterclass.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the positive side of things as well, but being able to really design your change programs to being data driven.
And I think with that, what I think is especially new for me to this approach is not just looking at adoption data, but really from the beginning, starting to also look at legacy. Yeah. So I really like that. Yeah.
Don't forget the people who were not using it, because maybe this is an opportunity to kind of find out why they weren't using it and have them come and help you to design the processes and the technology so that they will actually use the new technology. But data-driven change management is so key. We don't see a lot out there about it, but I use it in absolutely every change management program that I am designing. So I would recommend others do the same.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for all your insights.
Thank you. This was great. I think we talked for a long time.
We did.
We always do. But thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much. And for all the listeners, this was Erica Adams. She is a great mentor, a great change practitioner. Where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn.
All right. So you will probably see those invitations going up until the next episode. Thank you so much, everyone.